Welcome to the Parenting Roundabout podcast for the week of January 25th, 2021. Every week we chat about the things parents are talking about, complaining about, and obsessing about right now. I'm Nicole Erdix, and I'm here with Terry Morrow.
Hello.
And Catherine Haleko.
Hello.
This week we are complaining about helpful products that just make more work and obsessing about pandemic clothing. We're also taking a couple of breaks for an entertainment discussion and a recommendation roundup. Today we are talking about peer counseling for teens. And does that sound like a good idea? Well, Terry, I'm going to throw this over to you because you were the one that found the article and have an opinion on it.
I saw an article on Very Well about peer support programs for mental health for teens and how this might be better because teens would understand more than adults and reach teens the way that adults can't, says the title. And, you know, that they're training kids to counsel other kids and they can detect mental health problems. And I'm thinking that seems like a questionable idea. And I did notice that there's a paragraph here that says, some parents are hesitant because they don't believe a teenager could be trained to listen and have concerns about confidentiality. You think? So, I don't know. You guys have kids who are closer to the teen years than me. I'm pretty sure when my kids were in school, this would have been a terrible idea. Maybe partially because they both had issues that a teen untrained in disabilities might not understand and they might interpret things in one way. I felt like in general advice that they got from their peers was not helpful. And I don't know that anybody, you know, a helpful senior in the counseling office would have been any better at, although, you know what, honestly, I came about a lot of adults in the counseling system who didn't get it either. So maybe, you know, maybe it's half, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. But at least I think that adults would generally keep their mouth shut amongst kids. They probably don't amongst their fellow staff people, but that's a whole nother conversation. So you guys have teens and teen adjacent. Do you think that this sounds like a good idea, that if your teen is feeling troubled, they should go and have counseling from a peer? Or do you foresee all their problems on Instagram the next day?
It sounded like they're talking about, you know, that these peer counselors would be specially trained.
Yeah.
But still, I would have a lot of, you know, concerns about that. Because I think that, you know, the idea of like peer mentors can be a good idea. Like my kids' high school does a thing which I think a lot of schools do, where the freshmen they have a special freshman seminar, and it is actually led by a small group of upperclassmen who are, you know, who have to apply and are specially chosen for this role. And they do a lot to try to, you know, help freshmen adjust to high school. And I think that's really beneficial. But that's not really, I don't think, what we're talking about here.
No.
Which is, you know, kids with real mental health needs and concerns.
I just have so many issues with this whole concept. I mean, first of all, who's choosing the counselors? Like, who's on the committee for choosing? I mean, just having seen my kids go through high school, they had a peer mentor program. And it was just not a fair selection of kids. You know, a lot of kids applied and it looked good on their college resume or their college application. Not because they, you know, I'm sure they did, but I'm judging. But, you know, who's training them? What kind of measures are there for these kids themselves when they're having to hear this heavy information sometimes, right? Like,
Right.
Is it responsible of us to put teens through that? I mean, it's well known that, you know, their brains are still developing certain parts of their, you know, their emotions. I mean, they're not fully realized individuals at that point, right? Not, I mean, some adults aren't either, but it's just a recipe for disaster in my mind. I just cannot see. Is there anywhere where they've done this, Terry? Was there anything in the article about?
It sounds like the sort of thing. Let me see the article. It sounds like the sort of thing that schools are doing. Although now, who knows? How is this happening now? It says many schools have implemented these programs as a way to uncover any indications of mental health distress and circumvent suicidal ideations in students. Now, those things are really, really important. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that a teenager, even a trained teenager, is... If you charge a teenager with, talk to people and find out if they have any suicidal ideations.
That's ridiculous.
I think they're gonna find too many. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they don't have the wisdom or the life experience.
Yeah, I don't know that would be... I remember a conversation between two teenagers, and I heard the conversation, and I understood the situation, that somebody knew a couple of people who had killed themselves. And so she was talking about it like, oh, that's so, they were going through the yearbook. Oh, that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so, and this thing happened to them. And the other teenager was like, her antennae boinged up, and she was like, she told her mother, I think that my friend is going to, kill herself because she was talking about it all the time. And it's like, but if you, as an adult listening to the conversation and knowing the situation, that was not the case. But they're so sensitized to it that there can be an overreaction. I think, and it sounds terrible to say this because, of course, you want to prevent it, but you also don't want to plant it. You don't want to say, I can see you are thinking about this. Well, I'm really not. Yes, you are. I can tell. So.
Well, and also, as you mentioned before, the pressure that puts on these peer counselors, like, what if someone does hurt themselves and this person feels like they were to blame because they didn't figure it out and stop it? That's horrible.
I mean, I'm sure they have they do have checks and balances in place, but okay, first of all, the inconsistency of schools and school programs is just that there's too much inconsistency in a school setting for this to be for it to become a cultural norm, because it has to become a cultural norm within the school that these teen counselors are, they're accessible and that they're reliable and trustworthy, right? So, I just have so many concerns about a program that running. Would it just last a year and then the person who's running it leave? Is there, what kind of time does it take to get up and going? I don't know. Is this an excuse for not hiring more mental health counselors in the school system?
Yes.
Come on. Really? I mean, why do you teach teens social skills and empathy and listening skills and just stuff that kids need in their lives, and teach them that normalize that people have mental health issues and you know what I mean? I don't know.
And I mean, how comfortable would teens be being honest on these things? And they seem to feel that teens would talk more to other teens than to adults. I don't know if that's true. I mean, are you going to bare your soul to somebody you're going to see in math class?
Yeah, I mean, I think having more trusted adults in those roles would go a lot further.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Take whatever funding you're using to train 16-year-olds and use it to hire a 30-year-old who has a master's degree.
Exactly. I mean, what are we doing here? I just think it's people are trying to come up with ways to, to reach kids and to make services more accessible, but is it really using our teens? Is that the way to do it? I don't think, I don't know. I really have strong negative feelings about this.
Yeah, that's what I felt when I read it. And it's like with everything else, probably there are instances where it's very effective. And probably there are particular teens who are good at it. But the problem is you have to implement it if you're trying to implement it in lots of schools and get lots of teens involved, there's gonna be some who are not.
Oh.
And if you happen to be the vulnerable student who goes to one of those, who's doing it to get a good mark on their college resume and feels like this is only fun if I find problems with people, I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to overgeneralize and say that there aren't teens out there that are not compassionate or legitimate, are doing it with fidelity, but just my general observations lead me to think that this might not be a good idea.
And as you say, it could be the ones who are conscientious and empathetic, it's going to be traumatic for them if they're not able to help somebody effectively, or if somebody is dumping all their problems on them. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Like, I don't know I don't think I'd want my daughter to sign up for a program like that. I wouldn't want her to be responsible for taking on somebody else's issues.
Yikes. Well, if listeners, if you have had experience with this program and have found it to be good, let us know. We'll keep an open mind on it. But as is our way, we see a lot of downside. Downside are us. But that is it for today's round 1. Tune in tomorrow for our entertainment-themed round 2, and later in the week to find out what we're complaining about, obsessing about, and recommending right now. We're always interested in what you have to say, so drop us a comment on our website, our Facebook page, or Twitter, where you'll find us at Roundabout Chat.